The unbelievable challenge. What if the world's most famous innovator was suddenly challenged by a 7-year-old genius? Imagine Elon Musk, the man behind Tesla, SpaceX, and countless groundbreaking technologies, facing off with a child whose intelligence and creativity rival the best in the world. The question captured the imagination of millions overnight. Who would win? Could a child really compete with a visionary billionaire? This story begins at the moment Elon Musk announced a public challenge that left everyone speechless and set the stage for an unexpected journey of innovation, courage, and hope. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? It all started on a brisk autumn morning in San Francisco, where Elon Musk was preparing for the launch of SpaceX's latest rocket. Cameras and journalists buzzed around the launch pad, but his mind was elsewhere, distracted by a news story that had gone viral overnight. A video showing a 7-year-old girl named Emma Harper solving complex engineering problems with astonishing speed and creativity had taken the internet by storm. Emma wasn't just any prodigy, she was already designing her own mini-robots and writing algorithms that baffled experts twice her age. Intrigued and a bit amused, Elon tweeted, "Challenge accepted." The tweet exploded with likes and retweets, stirring conversations across the globe. The idea was simple yet extraordinary. Elon Musk would publicly challenge Emma Harper to a series of innovation puzzles and problems to see who could come up with the best solutions. It was a clash of generations, experience versus raw talent, money versus imagination. The announcement ignited a firestorm of reactions. Fans of Elon Musk doubted a 7-year-old could keep up. Supporters of Emma saw this as a breakthrough moment for youth in science and technology. Media outlets raced to cover the unfolding story, dubbing it the Genius Challenge. Yet, beneath the surface excitement, there was tension. Emma's mother, Lisa, was concerned about the pressure her daughter would face. Could a little girl handle the scrutiny of millions? What about her childhood, her education, her well-being? Meanwhile, Emma herself was torn. On one hand, she was thrilled to meet her idol and prove her skills. On the other, fear gnawed at her, fear of failure, of disappointing those who believed in her, and of losing the innocence of being a child. Elon, known for his relentless work ethic and occasional controversial statements, seemed unusually contemplative. Could this challenge push him to see the world through a new lens? Could Emma teach him something no boardroom meeting or lab experiment ever had? As news outlets broadcast the story, viewers everywhere felt drawn into this unprecedented event. Across living rooms, classrooms, and offices, people asked themselves, what if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? What would you do? How would you fight back? The challenge was more than just a contest, it was a metaphor for the future of innovation and the power of human potential at any age. In Ohio, Emma prepared for the first test, surrounded by drawings, books, and makeshift robots scattered across her bedroom floor. Her best friend Jake watched curiously as she tinkered with a complicated mechanical arm. "You're going to blow everyone away," he said, trying to hide his own nerves. "Thanks, Jake," Emma replied, her eyes shining with determination. "I just want to show them that age doesn't define who you are or what you can do." Across the country, Elon reviewed the challenge details. The competition was to be broadcast live, split into several rounds testing engineering, programming, and creative problem-solving. The stakes felt real, failure wasn't an option for either contestant. The world was watching. As the day of the first challenge approached, the tension mounted. Social media platforms filled with hashtags like #MuskVsEmma and #GeniusChallenge. Supporters sent messages of encouragement and warnings of the immense pressure on a young child. Yet Emma stayed focused. The day of the first challenge arrived with a blend of nerves and excitement. The venue was set in a high-tech studio filled with flashing screens, futuristic gadgets, and an audience eager to witness history. Elon Musk appeared calm and collected, but those who knew him sensed a quiet thrill beneath his exterior. Emma walked in confidently, dressed in her favorite rocket-themed sweatshirt, clutching her notebook filled with ideas and sketches. The challenge was announced. Solve a complex puzzle related to space exploration within 2 hours. It wasn't just about speed but creativity and feasibility. Cameras zoomed in as the clock started ticking. Elon began assembling his approach with the precision and experience of years spent developing rockets. Emma dove into the problem with a unique perspective, drawing inspiration from nature, art, and science fiction stories she loved. As the minutes passed, it became clear this wouldn't be an easy contest. Elon's expertise was undeniable, but Emma's fresh ideas sparked moments of awe from the audience and judges. The tension in the room was palpable. The challenge was a roller coaster of moments. Elon's well-practiced methods met with Emma's imaginative leaps. At one point, Emma paused, biting her lip, then smiled as she scribbled down a new idea. Elon noticed and nodded, a rare gesture of respect. When the time was up, both presented their solutions. Elon's was brilliant but expected. Emma's was unconventional but compelling. The judges debated fiercely, and the audience erupted in applause for both. The first round ended not with a clear winner but with a profound respect for the power of innovation across generations. The story was far from over. What would the next challenge bring? How would Emma and Elon grow through this competition? One thing was certain, this contest was more than a battle of wits. It was a journey that would change both their lives forever. The question lingered, in a world full of uncertainties, what drives us forward? For Emma, it was curiosity and the dream of exploring new frontiers. For Elon, it was the relentless pursuit of progress and the hope that the next breakthrough might come from an unexpected place. And for all of us watching, it was a reminder that greatness can come from anyone, anywhere, even a 7-year-old genius from a small town in Ohio. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Share your thoughts below. Stay tuned for Chapter 2, where we dive into Emma's past and discover the roots of her extraordinary mind. The adventure has just begun. Emma Harper was no ordinary 7-year-old. From the moment she could speak, her mind buzzed with questions and ideas far beyond what most children her age even dreamed of. Born in a modest house in Dayton, Ohio, Emma's world was small but filled with endless curiosity. Her mother, Lisa Harper, a single parent juggling 2 jobs, often marveled at how her daughter could solve puzzles and rattle off facts about planets, robotics, and mathematics as easily as other kids learned their ABCs. Lisa's own childhood had been full of hardships, growing up in a working-class family with limited opportunities, but she was determined to give Emma every chance to thrive. She encouraged Emma's curiosity, brought her to local science fairs, and spent late nights reading books about inventors and explorers to fuel her daughter's imagination. Emma's father had left before she was born, leaving Lisa to raise her alone. Though the absence left a quiet ache in Emma's heart, it also forged a deep bond between mother and daughter. Lisa was Emma's biggest cheerleader, protector, and sometimes her voice of reason when the world's expectations seemed too heavy for a little girl to bear. Growing up, Emma's life was filled with moments that shaped who she was. At 4, she had taken apart the family toaster just to see how it worked and put it back together again. At 5, she built her first robot, a clunky, uneven machine that could move across the floor on its own. At 6, she won a regional science competition with a homemade water filtration system. But it wasn't just her intellect that made Emma special, it was her heart. She had a quiet empathy that drew people in, even as her intelligence set her apart. Her best friend Jake, who lived next door, was her constant companion. Jake wasn't a genius, but he was loyal and endlessly supportive. He kept Emma grounded, reminding her to laugh, play, and just be a kid. "You don't have to solve the world's problems all at once," he told her one day as they sat under a big oak tree, watching the clouds. "You just have to take one step at a time." Emma smiled, but inside, she felt the weight of her dreams pressing on her small shoulders. School wasn't always easy either. Teachers admired her brilliance but sometimes struggled to challenge her enough. Classmates didn't always understand her, and she often felt lonely in the crowded hallways. Emma learned early that being different could be both a gift and a burden. Despite this, she found solace in her projects and her mother's unwavering belief. Lisa knew Emma needed more than just academic challenges, she needed love and normalcy too. She made sure to celebrate Emma's small victories and remind her that success wasn't just about brains but about kindness and resilience. One of Emma's most cherished memories was a camping trip they took to a nearby state park. Sitting by the campfire, Lisa told Emma stories about women inventors and astronauts who changed history. Emma's eyes sparkled with wonder, and that night she dreamed of stars and rockets, imagining herself one day walking on the moon. It was this dream that fueled her every day. When Elon Musk's challenge was announced, Lisa worried. Could the pressure break her daughter's spirit? Could Emma handle the spotlight and the expectations? But Emma surprised her mother. Instead of fear, she felt excitement. This was her chance to show the world what she was capable of, not just as a child prodigy, but as a person with a vision. At school, news about the challenge spread quickly. Some classmates were amazed, others were jealous or skeptical. Emma kept her focus, balancing homework, experiments, and practice sessions with Jake's help. Jake, though not as brilliant, became her unofficial coach and biggest fan. He made sure Emma took breaks, played games, and didn't lose sight of the joy in discovery. Meanwhile, Lisa arranged meetings with local scientists and mentors who could help Emma prepare. She knew this competition wasn't just about winning but about growth. Emma absorbed every lesson, every tip, and every piece of advice with hunger. Her room became a mini laboratory filled with wires, gadgets, sketches, and notes. Nights were spent testing ideas under the glow of a desk lamp, often losing track of time until Lisa gently reminded her to rest. Emma's emotional landscape was complex. She carried the innocence of childhood alongside the weight of a prodigy's expectations. At times, loneliness crept in, and she wondered if anyone truly understood her world. But moments like Jake's friendship and Lisa's hugs kept her anchored. Her mother's words echoed in her mind, "No matter what happens, remember you're more than a genius. You're brave, kind, and loved." These words became a mantra, pushing Emma forward when doubts surfaced. As the day of the first challenge approached, Emma's excitement was tinged with nervousness. She knew the world would be watching, waiting to see if she could stand toe-to-toe with Elon Musk. But deep down, she believed this was more than a competition. It was a story about possibility, about breaking barriers, and about hope for a future where anyone, no matter their age or background, could change the world. Lisa watched her daughter prepare, proud and protective. She whispered a quiet prayer, hoping Emma would not only succeed but also find joy in the journey. Emma smiled back, ready to take her first step into the unknown. The challenge was set to begin, and with it, a new chapter in both their lives was about to unfold. What would the future hold? Only time would tell, but one thing was clear: Emma Harper was not just a 7-year-old genius, she was a force of nature ready to make her mark. As the sun set over Dayton, casting golden light through Emma's window, she closed her eyes and dreamed of rockets, robots, and the stars beyond. The journey had just begun. The spark of inspiration. Emma's life was a delicate balance between the extraordinary and the ordinary. While her mind raced with complex equations and futuristic inventions, she still loved simple pleasures, a swing at the park, a bedtime story, or a laugh with Jake. But beneath that childlike wonder was a fierce determination, fueled by moments that shaped her in ways words could hardly capture. One such moment came unexpectedly during a chilly spring afternoon when Emma and her mother visited the local science museum. It was a place Emma had been to many times, yet this visit was different. As they wandered through the exhibits, Emma's eyes caught a dusty display case labeled "Women Pioneers in Space." Inside were photographs, models, and worn journals belonging to female astronauts and engineers who had defied odds to reach the stars. Among them was a faded picture of Katherine Johnson, the mathematician whose calculations helped launch the first American astronaut into orbit. Emma stood silently, tracing the image with her finger, absorbing the story of courage and brilliance from a time when girls like her were often told they couldn't dream so big. "Mom," Emma whispered, "they did it even when everyone said it was impossible." Lisa smiled, squeezing her daughter's hand. "Yes, honey. And that's why you can't let anyone tell you what you can or can't do." That afternoon planted a seed in Emma's heart, a seed of inspiration that would grow stronger with every challenge she faced. It was not just about being smart or winning a contest, it was about carrying forward the legacy of those who paved the way. Back home, Emma dove into her projects with renewed passion. Her notebooks overflowed with sketches of spacecraft, ideas for renewable energy, and notes about artificial intelligence. But it wasn't just science that fascinated her. Emma was captivated by stories of people who faced failure but never gave up, stories of friendship and sacrifice, stories that made her believe in the impossible. Jake noticed the change too. One afternoon while building a small drone together, he asked, "What keeps you going when things get really hard?" Emma paused, tightening a screw on the drone's frame. "It's like, there's this spark inside me. When I think about all the people who struggled before me, or my mom working so hard, it makes me want to try harder. I want to be someone who makes a difference." Jake nodded thoughtfully. "I think that's pretty amazing." Meanwhile, Lisa watched her daughter's growth with a mixture of pride and worry. She saw the hours Emma spent alone in her room, the way she sometimes grew frustrated or withdrawn when ideas didn't work out. One evening, Lisa sat down beside Emma, gently asking, "Do you ever feel scared, sweetheart?" Emma looked up, eyes shining with honesty. "Sometimes. But I think being scared just means I care a lot. It means I want to do my best." That night, Lisa tucked Emma into bed and whispered, "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to move forward anyway." The words settled deep in Emma's heart. The coming weeks were a whirlwind of preparation for the challenge against Elon Musk. Emma practiced solving problems under time pressure, rehearsed presentations with Jake, and learned to manage the media attention with her mother's help. Elon Musk's team reached out to Lisa to ensure Emma had support and was comfortable with the spotlight. Though skeptical at first, Lisa appreciated the professionalism and kindness shown by Elon's staff. Emma even received a personal message from Elon, encouraging her to believe in herself and enjoy the experience. The contest was about to become more than a public spectacle, it was a meeting of minds across generations, united by a passion for discovery. As the first challenge loomed closer, Emma felt a mixture of excitement and nerves. She knew this wasn't just a game. It was a chance to show the world that innovation wasn't limited by age or background. At school, teachers adapted lessons to give Emma space to explore new ideas, while classmates began to see her not just as a prodigy but as a girl with hopes and dreams like anyone else. The community rallied around Emma too. Local newspapers ran stories celebrating her talent and spirit. Scientists and educators sent letters of support. Emma became a symbol of possibility, a reminder that greatness could come from the most unexpected places. On the night before the first challenge, Emma lay awake in bed, thinking about everything she had learned and experienced. She thought about Katherine Johnson and the women pioneers. She thought about her mother's sacrifices, Jake's friendship, and Elon Musk's challenge. Most of all, she thought about the spark inside her, the spark that no obstacle could extinguish. "Tomorrow," she whispered to the darkness, "I'm ready." The next morning, the sun rose over Dayton, casting golden light through Emma's window. The journey was just beginning, and Emma Harper was prepared to face whatever came next with courage, creativity, and heart. The story wasn't just hers, it belonged to everyone who dared to dream big. The morning of the big announcement was charged with an electric energy that seemed to ripple through the air itself. News crews had set up cameras in the sleek, glass-walled auditorium of Tesla's headquarters in Palo Alto, California, a space humming with the pulse of innovation. Elon Musk, dressed in his signature black shirt and jeans, stood behind a polished podium, eyes sharp but reflecting an unusual mix of excitement and curiosity. The world was watching. Millions across the globe had tuned in live, waiting to hear the details of the challenge between the tech titan and the 7-year-old prodigy, Emma Harper. It wasn't just a contest, it had become a cultural moment, a symbol of what the future could hold. As Elon began speaking, his voice carried both authority and a rare warmth. "When I first saw Emma Harper's work, I was blown away," he admitted. "Her creativity and intelligence remind me that innovation isn't just about experience or resources. Sometimes, it's about seeing the world differently. That's why I'm here to officially announce the Genius Challenge, an unprecedented series of tests to explore how a young mind can push the boundaries of technology and problem-solving." The cameras zoomed in on Emma, seated in the front row beside her mother, Lisa, looking calm but alert. Her small hands gripped the armrest of her chair as the applause echoed around the room. The announcement detailed the format of the competition: 5 rounds of challenges designed to test engineering skill, creativity, logic, and endurance. Each round would be broadcast live, featuring tasks ranging from building functioning machines to solving complex puzzles related to space exploration and sustainable energy. The stakes were high, but so was the promise of discovery. Elon explained that the goal was not to declare a winner but to celebrate the spirit of innovation and collaboration across generations. "Emma and I aren't here to compete against each other," he said. "We're here to learn from each other, to inspire the next generation, and maybe, just maybe, to change the world." The crowd erupted in applause once more, and cameras captured Emma's shy but genuine smile. It was a moment of triumph and possibility. Yet, behind the scenes, emotions ran deeper and more complicated. Lisa felt a surge of pride mixed with anxiety. This public spotlight was overwhelming, and she worried about how it might affect Emma's childhood. But seeing her daughter's determination, she knew there was no turning back. Emma herself was a whirlwind of emotions. The excitement of standing at the center of global attention was tempered by the weight of expectation. Still, she reminded herself of the spark inside her, the same spark that had carried her through lonely nights and difficult challenges. The announcement quickly made headlines worldwide. News outlets analyzed every word. Social media exploded with hashtags like #GeniusChallenge and #EmmaVs.Elon. Commentators debated whether a child could truly challenge one of the most brilliant minds of the 21st century. Some expressed skepticism, fearing the competition might be a publicity stunt. Others hailed it as a groundbreaking moment for youth empowerment and scientific exploration. Emma's hometown of Dayton buzzed with excitement and pride. Local schools organized viewing parties, and community leaders praised her as a symbol of hope and inspiration. The public's response added another layer of pressure but also support, reinforcing the significance of the challenge. Meanwhile, Elon's team worked behind the scenes to design the first challenge, a test inspired by real problems faced by SpaceX engineers. It required contestants to create a prototype drone capable of navigating an obstacle course autonomously, simulating the conditions of planetary exploration. The task was daunting even for experienced engineers, let alone a 7-year-old. But Elon believed that true innovation came from pushing limits. As the day of the first challenge approached, the tension in the air was palpable. Emma and her mother traveled to California, accompanied by Jake and a small group of mentors and supporters. The journey was a whirlwind of interviews, rehearsals, and briefings. Emma handled the pressure with surprising grace, often retreating to quiet moments with Jake to recharge. Elon, too, was preparing mentally and physically. Though used to high-stakes launches and deadlines, this competition was different. It was a test not just of skill but of mindset, a challenge to see through the eyes of a child and rediscover the joy of pure curiosity. On the eve of the first challenge, a private dinner brought Elon, Emma, Lisa, Jake, and key team members together. The conversation was warm, peppered with laughter and shared stories. Elon spoke candidly about his own childhood struggles, the failures that shaped him, and the mentors who believed in him. Emma listened intently, inspired by the honesty and vulnerability behind the public persona. Lisa observed the interaction with relief and hope. Here was a moment of connection across generations, a glimpse of the friendship that might grow beyond the competition. The next morning, the studio was alive with anticipation. Bright lights illuminated the stage, cameras whirred, and a live audience buzzed with excitement. Emma stood backstage, taking deep breaths, her heart pounding. Jake gave her a reassuring thumbs up, while Lisa whispered words of encouragement. Elon appeared moments later, his calm presence a steadying force. The host welcomed viewers around the world and introduced the challenge. As the countdown began, Emma's hands tingled with adrenaline. This was more than a competition. It was the beginning of a journey, one filled with discovery, growth, and the promise that sometimes the smallest voices can make the loudest impact. The first round was about to unfold, and the world held its breath. What would happen next? Would Emma's fresh ideas surprise Elon? Would the tech mogul learn something new from a child prodigy? The answers would soon be revealed in a story that no one would forget. Stay tuned for Chapter 5, where the battle of wits and creativity truly begins, and both Elon and Emma face challenges that push them beyond their limits. The studio lights burned bright, reflecting off the steel and glass of the set built to resemble the interior of a futuristic space station. A large digital clock hovered overhead, counting down from 2 hours. The stage was divided in two, on one side, a workbench stacked with tools, wires, and drone parts for Elon Musk. On the other, an identical setup for Emma Harper, who stood on her platform wearing a deep blue hoodie emblazoned with tiny rocket ships. A soft murmur of excitement rose from the live audience and viewers watching online as the host raised the microphone and announced the first official challenge: design and construct a functioning prototype of an autonomous drone capable of mapping an unknown terrain while avoiding a randomized obstacle field. The task was no joke, it was inspired by a real Mars rover navigation test. The challenge was engineered to simulate the harsh unpredictability of exploring an alien world, with multiple levels of problem-solving required: drone design, sensor calibration, navigation logic, and energy management. Elon nodded with quiet confidence, already sketching out his design in his mind. He'd done this sort of thing before, countless times. But Emma, standing opposite him, was calm too. She took a breath, whispered a mantra her mother had taught her. One piece at a time, Emma. The solution's already inside you. And then set to work. The clock ticked down, 1 hour 59 minutes and 58 seconds. From the first moment, the contrast between Elon and Emma's methods became clear. Elon was precise and efficient, his hands moving from schematic to soldering iron with a rhythmic fluidity that came from years of repetition. He was focused, analytical, thinking 10 steps ahead. But Emma's approach was more like jazz, improvisational, reactive, creative. She studied the parts carefully, turned them over in her fingers, and began building with a surprising calmness, pausing often to visualize before making each decision. Her drone looked different from Elon's, smaller, lighter, less symmetrical. But there was something intentional in her choices, something intuitive. Watching her was like watching a young artist paint with circuitry and code. At the 45-minute mark, Emma ran into her first problem. Her prototype lost power during a bench test. The wiring on her power distribution board had shorted out, and the circuit board sparked briefly before the drone's lights dimmed. A gasp went through the crowd, and Emma's eyes widened in alarm. For a long second, she froze. This wasn't just about building anymore, this was about failure, public failure, with millions watching. Her hands trembled. She looked out across the audience, spotted her mother and Jake in the front row. Lisa mouthed the words, "You've got this." Jake flashed a double thumbs up and pantomimed breathing deeply. Emma inhaled slowly, remembered what Jake had said just the night before when she doubted herself: "You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep trying." She replaced the board quickly but carefully, recalculated the voltage distribution, and rerouted her energy logic with a workaround she'd learned from a YouTube video months ago, during one of her late-night deep dives into drone engineering. It worked. The lights on her drone blinked back to life. She smiled, her confidence returning, the fear burned off in the furnace of pressure. Meanwhile, Elon's drone was nearly complete. He tested his navigation program with a series of simulated barriers, making real-time adjustments to the AI logic. His design was sleek and robust, designed for performance and durability. His decades of experience showed through in every line of code. At 1 hour and 30 minutes, both drones were tested for basic hover and movement. Elon's lifted perfectly, its propellers humming with precision. Emma's rose too, but her algorithm caused the drone to wobble in a figure-8 pattern before stabilizing. The judges looked at one another, intrigued. Elon noticed too. Instead of dismissing it, he raised an eyebrow, watching Emma with a faint smile. When the final 30 minutes arrived, the test terrain was unveiled. A rotating obstacle course had been constructed behind a transparent wall. It featured shifting platforms, random signal interference zones, and a simulated topographic map of a Martian crater field. Each drone would be released into the field, and the goal was to scan the environment, avoid obstacles, and return accurate terrain data to the control console. Emma's face lit up when she saw the terrain. It reminded her of the crater map she had modeled in her backyard sandbox using sticks and tiny rocks. She adjusted her drone's programming, not for speed but for adaptive response. She remembered how ants navigated obstacles in real time and tried to simulate that flexibility. Elon finalized his code, prioritizing precision and path optimization. When the countdown reached 0, the drones lifted into the course, and the audience fell silent. Elon's drone performed flawlessly at first, gliding through the first obstacle set, mapping the simulated terrain with high accuracy. Emma's drone hesitated at the entry point, scanned the area, then veered left, an unexpected move. It avoided a low-hanging sensor trap Elon's drone had nearly clipped. It made slow progress, but each movement was deliberate, responding to changes in the course with odd, seemingly random shifts. Then something happened that no one expected. Midway through the terrain, a previously dormant module of the obstacle course activated prematurely, sending a burst of magnetic interference that disrupted Elon's drone's sensors. The drone jolted, veered off path, and clipped a rotating arm. It regained control but lost crucial data in the process. Emma's drone, moving slower, detected the interference and responded by adjusting altitude and rerouting its path. It bypassed the hazard entirely and completed its terrain scan with near-total coverage. When the drones returned to their respective stations and the data was downloaded, the judges reviewed the results carefully. Elon's drone had been faster and more elegant, but Emma's had adapted better, avoided hazards, and returned the most accurate terrain map. The host returned to the stage, audience on edge. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, glancing between Elon and Emma, after careful review of performance, strategy, and adaptability, the judges have reached a decision. This round is awarded to Emma Harper. A stunned silence was followed by wild applause. Emma looked stunned herself, blinking rapidly as if trying to make sure this was real. Elon turned toward her and smiled. Then, to the surprise of everyone, he clapped, slowly, sincerely. He leaned in and said, just loud enough for her to hear, "Nice work. You saw something I missed." Emma blushed, a mix of pride and disbelief washing over her. Lisa was crying in the audience, overcome with emotion. Jake jumped out of his seat, cheering wildly, spinning in a circle before collapsing back down and shouting, "Let's go, Emma." The moment was a triumph, not just for Emma, but for every kid watching who had ever been told they were too young, too inexperienced, or too different to make a difference. But it wasn't the end. As the crowd settled and the media swarmed in with cameras and microphones, Elon stepped back to the podium. "This is exactly why we're doing this," he said, voice full of admiration. "Innovation doesn't come from playing it safe. It comes from seeing problems differently, and today, Emma reminded us of that." The victory catapulted Emma into an even brighter spotlight. News outlets called her a prodigy. Social media platforms exploded with support and celebration. But for Emma, the feeling wasn't just about winning. It was about being seen, heard, and taken seriously. Because Mars has a thinner atmosphere than Earth, the host explained, flight requires dramatically different lift dynamics. The contestants must apply principles of aerodynamics, propulsion, and materials engineering to solve the problem, on a tight deadline. Emma listened closely. Her eyes narrowed. This was no toy drone challenge. This was aerospace science, one of the hardest problems in modern space exploration. For days, she immersed herself in research, Bernoulli's principle, Reynolds numbers, wing loading, atmospheric drag. She studied every paper she could find about NASA's Ingenuity helicopter. She even reached out to a professor from MIT who had spoken in a TED Talk about Martian flight design. Her sketches were beautiful, delicate, creative, and precise. She envisioned a quadrotor with ultra-thin blades angled for maximum lift, using a flexible carbon fiber blend she hoped to 3D print in segments. But time was short, and the materials had to be sourced quickly. Elon, meanwhile, was calm and methodical. His design was reminiscent of existing prototypes but modified with proprietary SpaceX innovations. While Emma's prototype aimed for elegance and minimalism, Elon's strategy focused on redundancy and power efficiency. They were two philosophies, hers rooted in idealism, his in proven engineering. With the challenge just hours away, Emma and her team discovered their biggest hurdle yet. The specialty material she had selected for the rotor blades hadn't been printed correctly. The composite had warped in shipping due to a humidity error, rendering 2 of her 4 blades unusable. Panic rippled through the room. "We don't have time to reprint," one of the engineers whispered. Emma stood frozen, staring at the twisted parts on the table. Her design, her whole approach, had hinged on the use of those specific materials. She had built the entire prototype around their weight and flexibility. Without them, her math wouldn't hold. Jake looked at her, eyes wide. "Emma, what do we do?" Lisa put a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder, but didn't speak. She knew words wouldn't help now. This was one of those moments when Emma had to find her own way forward. Emma backed away from the table. Her heart pounded. She felt it rise, the pressure, the expectation, the fear of falling short after so many people had believed in her. She didn't want to let them down. She didn't want to let herself down. But then she remembered something. A line from a book she had read when she was younger, about a girl building her own glider: "The wind will always change. That's why you build wings that can bend without breaking." She turned slowly to the team. "Get me the older frame," she said. "The one from the drone we tested last month, the one with the foam stabilizers." "You mean the backup prototype?" Jake asked. "But that one's heavier." Emma nodded. "I'll compensate. We'll increase blade area, tweak the pitch, and adjust the motor pulse rate. It won't be perfect, but if I can shift the center of lift closer to the base, it might just stay in the air long enough." It was a gamble. A big one. But it was better than giving up. The studio once again filled with people. The audience was slightly larger now, and the tension was far more intense. Everyone knew that this challenge would be harder than the last. When the timer started, Elon got right to work, assembling his rotor system with professional efficiency. Emma, now working with a revised model, moved faster than ever. Her hands were steady, her brain racing. She had memorized every change, recalculated every torque ratio, and adapted her code to run energy optimization loops mid-flight. With 30 minutes remaining, Elon's prototype was complete. It was clean, symmetrical, and ready for flight. Emma's drone looked different. Uneven in some places, patched together in others. But it was beautiful in its own way, like a phoenix rising from wreckage. Flight tests began. Elon's drone lifted first. It rose smoothly, hovered at 5 meters, and performed a clean circle over the test zone before landing. A solid success. Then came Emma's turn. Her drone trembled on liftoff. The new rotor setup caused minor instability, but the system adapted. The drone rose, slowly, carefully, and steadied itself mid-air. Then, against all odds, it climbed higher. 5 meters. 7. 10. It hovered for 20 seconds, mapping air pressure and reporting back real-time telemetry. Then, the outer blades began to drift, losing thrust on one side. The audience gasped. Emma clenched her jaw. Her finger hovered over the manual override button, but she paused. She believed in her backup algorithm. The drone wobbled, corrected itself mid-flight using auto-calibration, and landed slightly off-target, but safely. The room was silent. The judges reviewed the data. Both contestants demonstrated ingenuity and technical skill, the host said, but today's round will go to Elon Musk. Applause followed. Emma took a breath. It hurt, but she nodded, smiling faintly. Elon approached her, offered a hand. "You did something incredible today," he said. "Most adults would have panicked. You didn't." "I almost did," Emma admitted, shaking his hand. "But I had a backup plan." "Sort of." Elon laughed. "That's half of engineering. The other half is having the nerve to stick with it." The media praised Elon's win but couldn't ignore Emma's resilience. Her ability to recover from a last-minute failure, re-engineer her design, and still fly under pressure was called a lesson in grace and grit. Lisa hugged her that night, holding her close. "I'm proud of you," she said. "Not for winning or losing. For how you stood back up." Emma leaned against her, tired but peaceful. "I didn't win," she whispered. "No," Lisa said, "but you proved to the world that you don't give up. And that's more important than one round." Outside, California's night sky glittered with stars. Emma looked up, her mind already moving ahead. The score was now tied, 1 round each. But for Emma Harper, this was never just about a competition. It was about discovering what she was made of, and how far she could fly, even when the skies turned against her. The suite in Palo Alto was quiet. Too quiet. After the buzz of the second challenge, cameras, interviews, applause, analysis. The silence felt unnatural, like the air had been sucked out of the room. Emma sat at the desk near the window, staring at her notebook. Pages of equations, sketches, and notes stared back at her, but for the first time in weeks, she didn't feel excited to dive in. She had lost. It wasn't a disaster. Everyone kept telling her how incredible it was that she'd even salvaged the drone in time. But to Emma, it felt like a crack in the armor. One that threatened to grow. The voice in her head had started to shift, less confident now, more critical. Maybe the first round was luck. Maybe you're just a kid playing pretend. What if you've already peaked? Jake knocked softly on the door and poked his head in. "Hey," he said, holding a bag of gummy bears. "I come bearing sugar and friendship." Emma gave a small smile. "Thanks." He handed her the bag and sat on the floor beside her chair. For a while, neither of them said anything. The city lights blinked outside the window like distant stars, and the murmur of traffic sounded far away, like it was part of another world. "You were awesome today," Jake finally said. "Seriously. Most people wouldn't have even tried to rebuild their design last minute. You didn't just try, you flew it." Emma didn't look up. "I still lost." "Yeah," Jake said honestly. "You did. But losing doesn't make you less of a genius. It makes you real. And brave." Emma was quiet for a long time. Then she whispered, "I don't know if I can keep doing this. I'm tired. And I keep thinking, what if I let everyone down?" Jake frowned. "You're not letting anyone down. Not even close." Emma hugged her knees, her voice low. I thought I could do anything. But I'm starting to realize that I'm just 7. Maybe I've pushed too far. Jake leaned his head against her chair. Can I tell you a secret? She looked at him. I used to think being smart meant never messing up. But I've been watching you, and I think it's the opposite. You mess up, and then you figure it out. That's the genius part. Not the math. Not the fancy code. The part where you try again even when it hurts. Emma's throat tightened. I wish I believed that, she said. Before Jake could answer, there was a knock at the suite door. Lisa opened it, and a man stepped in, tall, middle-aged, with gray at his temples and warm eyes behind thin glasses. Dr. Levinson, Lisa said, surprised. You're really here. Emma's eyes widened. Wait. Dr. Daniel Levinson. From Caltech? He smiled. Guilty. Emma stood up quickly. But. I sent you that email about ion propulsion theory months ago. I didn't think you'd ever see it. I did, he said, stepping inside. And I've been following your journey ever since. Elon invited me to observe the challenge. I asked if I could speak with you privately. Emma was stunned. Really? I wanted to tell you something, he said. And I hope it's okay if I'm honest. Emma nodded, heart thudding. I watched your flight today, Dr. Levinson said. And I saw what most of the world missed. You didn't lose that challenge, Emma. You won something far more important. Emma tilted her head. What do you mean? You hit a wall, he said gently. A real one. And you could have quit. You could have cried, blamed someone, made excuses. But instead, you redesigned your entire solution in less than an hour, from instinct and memory. You pivoted under pressure. You built something new out of something broken. That's what engineers do. That's what leaders do. She looked down. But the numbers didn't work. He smiled again. Emma, do you know how many failed rockets led to the ones that launched? She didn't answer. All of them, he said. Every success we see today, every clean launch, every smooth orbit, was built on the back of failures and corrections. Sometimes, the mistake teaches more than the perfect outcome. Emma's eyes welled with tears. She blinked fast, trying not to let them fall. Dr. Levinson sat on the edge of the bed. But more than your science, what I saw today, what I felt, was heart. You love this. That matters more than anything. The world has enough people chasing trophies. We need more who chase truth. Emma nodded slowly, her voice small. I just want to keep building. Then keep building, he said. Let the world catch up. He stood and held out his hand. When this challenge ends, if you ever want to come visit Caltech, my lab's doors are always open. Emma reached out and shook his hand, her tiny fingers swallowed in his. Her heart lifted, not because of the opportunity, but because someone who mattered had seen her, not just her ideas. After he left, Lisa hugged her daughter tightly. You okay, baby? Emma nodded into her shoulder. Yeah. I think I just forgot who I was for a minute. That night, Emma didn't sleep much. Instead, she sat at her desk sketching again, but this time not out of panic or pressure, out of joy. She was thinking about the next challenge, and what might be possible if she trusted her gut more than the fear in her head. She thought about Dr. Levinson's words. About Jake. About her mother. About the spark that had always been inside her, even when things felt dark. The next morning, Emma emerged from her room with her hair tied up in a messy bun, eyes bright again, a crumpled sheet of paper in hand. I've got an idea, she said. Jake grinned. I figured you would. The next challenge was just a few days away. And this time, Emma Harper wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone. She was building because she loved it. That spark. It wasn't gone. It was a wildfire waiting to ignite. 3 days later, in a bright white hangar converted into a high-tech studio outside of San Jose, the atmosphere was different. Not tense. Not celebratory. Curious. Like the calm before a storm no one could predict. The producers had done something unexpected, something no one, not even Elon or Emma, had been warned about. The morning briefing came with a twist. This round, the host announced as cameras rolled and millions tuned in worldwide, isn't a competition. It's a collaboration. Emma blinked. What? Contestants will not be judged individually. Instead, they will work together on a single, shared mission, the host explained. They'll have 48 hours to solve one of the most complex energy distribution problems on Earth. Designing a scalable, modular power grid that could function in rural, off-grid locations using only solar input, with zero battery storage. Emma exchanged a glance with Elon. His face betrayed no emotion, just a slow blink, a slight tilt of the head. He didn't seem bothered. Emma, on the other hand, felt her stomach flip. Work with Elon Musk. This was the man she had admired, challenged, and stood against in the eyes of the world. Now she had to sit beside him and build with him. The room spun, just for a second. I can't do this, Emma whispered to Jake during setup. Jake leaned down. Why not? I don't know how to talk to him. He's Elon Musk. What if I mess up? What if he ignores everything I say? Jake smiled gently. Then remind him who you are. Emma looked down at her notebook, the one she carried with her everywhere. The pages were dog-eared, smudged with ink and sweat. They were hers. Just like her ideas. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and walked over to the workstation where Elon was already examining the materials. He turned, nodded. You okay? She nodded back. Yeah. Just, new territory. He cracked a small smile. For both of us. They stood in silence for a moment, then Elon gestured to the parts on the table, microinverters, solar panels, circuit boards, a touchscreen monitor, and a handful of digital modeling tools. You want to take the grid modeling side, he asked. Or the panel optimization? Emma's eyes lit up. Grid modeling. Definitely. He handed her a tablet. Go for it. That was it. No condescension. No hesitation. Just a vote of confidence. Emma dove in. They quickly found a rhythm. Elon was fast, very fast, but Emma brought a kind of flexibility that surprised him. When a circuit arrangement didn't work, she didn't fight it, she adapted. She asked questions, challenged assumptions. Elon noticed how she kept saying, but what if we tried it backwards? Or, what's the worst-case scenario if we remove this component? At one point, Elon showed her a formula he had used in a previous Tesla Energy Pilot. She paused, then pointed at the whiteboard. That works, she said, but only if the inverter load is perfectly balanced. What if the region's power usage fluctuates seasonally? Farming zones don't consume the same energy year-round. He looked at her for a beat. You're right. Let's simulate that. She blinked. You're actually listening to me? Of course, Elon said simply. You're here because you're brilliant. Not because you're 7. The words hung in the air. They worked for hours. At one point, Lisa brought in sandwiches. Neither of them touched them. Jake watched from the sidelines, awed by how seamlessly they moved around each other, like two dancers in sync. One moment Elon was configuring energy regulators, the next, Emma was drawing real-time load balance curves on the glass wall, calculating slope gradients from instinct. They argued, too. Midway through the second day, Elon proposed a redundancy loop that would increase reliability but reduce output. Emma frowned. It's too much. If we scale this globally, the cost will spike. It's worth the safety net. Not if it stops adoption. He raised an eyebrow. What would you do? Emma erased half the diagram. Micro failover hubs. Cheaper, modular, and more localized. The whole grid doesn't go down if one part fails. Just a node. He stared at the board. Then slowly smiled. I like it. For a moment, the cameras caught something raw, pure collaboration between two minds separated by 40 years but united in vision. It wasn't student and teacher. It wasn't mentor and mentee. It was a partnership. When the 48 hours were up, the final presentation was broadcast globally. Emma and Elon stood side by side in front of a sleek, animated model of their design. Emma led the demo. We've created a distributed solar network that operates without battery storage by using real-time energy redirection, she explained confidently. It adapts dynamically to usage, season, and sunlight conditions. Every panel has its own inverter, and the system uses predictive AI to reroute energy before it hits stress thresholds. Elon added, it's not just a system. It's a philosophy, decentralized, democratic energy access. This model could power a remote village in the Amazon just as easily as a desert town in Nevada. The judges were speechless. No scoring was necessary this round. The achievement stood for itself. After the broadcast, back in the quiet of the backstage lounge, Emma sat with a juice box while Elon scrolled through the early reaction on his phone. Twitter thinks you might replace me in 10 years, he said dryly. Emma laughed, then got serious. Do you ever get scared? That you'll mess up? That people will stop believing in you? Elon looked up. His voice was quiet. All the time. Emma looked surprised. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. You don't outgrow doubt. You just learn how to walk through it anyway. She nodded slowly. I almost didn't come today, she admitted. I thought you'd ignore me. He smiled. I almost didn't come because I was afraid I'd underestimate you. They looked at each other for a long moment. Then Elon offered his hand. Thanks for building something with me. Emma shook it. Thanks for letting me. That night, Lisa watched her daughter sleep, curled up with her notebook under one arm. It wasn't just a dream anymore. It was a legacy already in motion. And across the world, a new generation of kids, watching the live stream, sketching in their own notebooks, dreaming of circuits and solutions, felt the fire ignite inside them. If she could do it, maybe they could too. It started with a flicker. At first, no one thought much of it, just a brief stutter in the massive LED screen surrounding the stage where the next challenge was being prepared. Technicians muttered about voltage surges, blaming the sudden spike in power draw as equipment ran diagnostics. But Emma noticed something strange. She had been reviewing the schematics for the challenge arena, a modular obstacle dome powered by an independent control system, when she saw that one of the back-end nodes, node 14B, was reporting a latency spike far above expected parameters. Is that normal? She asked Jake, pointing to her tablet. Jake looked over, frowning. No. That node shouldn't even be live until after the pre-run cycle starts. That's weird. They were backstage at the biggest venue yet, a dome-shaped structure constructed inside a former aerospace hangar near San Francisco. The upcoming challenge was rumored to be the most complex yet. A full simulation of a disaster response scenario using autonomous robotics, with teams needing to create systems that could search, assess, and deliver aid in hostile environments. But the prep had been oddly delayed. First, equipment arrived late. Then calibration tests were postponed. Now, a systems hiccup. Something's off, Emma murmured, scanning deeper into the control interface. From across the room, Elon approached, carrying his tablet. We've got a problem, he said simply. Somebody's been in the control systems. Emma looked up sharply. What? There's an unauthorized patch buried in the firmware stack. It was deployed 3 hours ago. Whoever did it was good, they masked it under a fake update protocol. But it's messing with voltage regulation. Elon held up his tablet and swiped through lines of dense code. Jake leaned in. So this isn't a glitch? Elon shook his head. No. It's deliberate. And if we don't isolate it fast, the entire control system could shut down mid-challenge. Emma's mind snapped into gear. Show me where the patch is nested. Elon handed over the tablet. Emma squinted at the code, her fingers dancing over the screen as she cross-referenced values. It was elegant, too elegant. Whoever wrote this had experience in low-level systems manipulation, enough to hide malicious behavior behind harmless-looking loops. But there it was, a subroutine triggering recursive memory bleed. It's a time bomb, Emma whispered. It'll overload the CPU cache just as the AI routines ramp up in the simulation. Total systems crash. Exactly, Elon said grimly. Which makes this sabotage. A chill passed through the room. Lisa, who had been sitting nearby reading on her phone, looked up. Wait, sabotage? By who? We don't know yet, Elon replied. But someone embedded this patch inside the arena's base code. They knew how to avoid our firewalls. Emma turned to the lead tech on site, a tall woman named Miri who had overseen the last 3 challenges. Can we roll back the systems to a previous stable state? Miri hesitated. We can, but the rollback will take 8 hours. That pushes the challenge back by at least a day. Emma glanced at Elon. Do we have time to rebuild the core from scratch? Not without risking the whole infrastructure, he said. But we might not need to. He turned to Emma with a look she recognized now, intense, locked in, the look of someone who had solved just enough of a problem to get excited. If we isolate the rogue patch and override its behavior instead of deleting it outright, he said, we can create a safe failsafe inside the code. Think of it like sealing off a leak instead of draining the pipe. Emma's brain lit up. And we can trap its output inside a sandboxed buffer. Feed it fake inputs. Make it think it's working. Jake's eyes widened. Like tricking it? Exactly, Elon and Emma said in unison. They both blinked, then grinned. For all the chaos, this was when they felt most alive. Together, they raced to work. Elon patched into the hardware monitoring systems, using a diagnostic interface Emma had helped create during the last challenge. Emma, meanwhile, rewrote the logic of the saboteur's patch, crafting a mirror routine that intercepted every critical signal and rerouted it to a dead-end loop with 0 impact. By hour 5, the main screen lit green. Miri leaned over the console and whispered, they did it. Jake threw his hands in the air. Let's go. Lisa exhaled with relief. But the victory was short-lived. Elon turned to the room, expression hard. We still don't know who did it. A security specialist reviewed system access logs and found a partial digital signature. An encrypted credential string tied to a guest account used during media prep. Suspicion immediately fell on the production team. Several of them had access during the overnight hours. But none of them had the kind of system expertise needed to write something like this. Emma frowned. Then who? And then she remembered. There had been someone. A few days ago, backstage during the Solar Grid Challenge. A man in a press badge who asked her odd questions. Not about the science. About the infrastructure. How secure the systems were. Whether the arenas were truly isolated. At the time, she had thought he was just curious. Now, it felt like a trap. I think I know who we need to look at, she said slowly. She described the man, and Miri ran a check. The badge was real, but issued to someone else. He had used a fake identity. Security reviewed video footage. Sure enough, there he was, early 40s, gray hoodie, standing too close to the access port on the west side terminal. The footage showed him reaching into his jacket, attaching a small device to the port. Lisa gasped. "Who is he?" Elon stepped back from the screen. "I know that man." Everyone turned. "His name's Ray Halvorson," Elon said. "Used to be a senior engineer at Neuralink. He was brilliant. But, unstable. We let him go after a series of internal breaches." "What would he want with this?" Jake asked. "Attention," Elon said. "Revenge. Or maybe just to prove he's smarter." Emma stared at the screen. The face of a man who had tried to tear down what she was helping build. "So what now?" Lisa asked. "We go forward," Elon said. "We've secured the systems. Let the challenge begin." But Emma wasn't ready to forget. That night, lying in her hotel bed, she thought about what it meant. Someone had tried to break the entire experience, not just for her, but for every viewer, every dreamer watching at home. Someone had tried to sabotage progress. And they almost got away with it. Emma realized something important: the bigger your light shines, the more shadows you attract. But she also knew the only answer was to shine brighter. Before she drifted off to sleep, she opened her notebook and wrote. "There will always be people trying to shut you down. But their noise can't stop the work. Just build. Just build." The next morning, when the arena lit up for the new challenge, Emma stepped onto the stage like she was walking into the future. Nothing could stop her now. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The day after the sabotage was the most intense one yet. Not because of another attack, or even the complexity of the next challenge, but because something deeper was unraveling, something harder to define. Tension. Between Emma and Elon. The arena had been repaired. Security protocols doubled. A new challenge was issued. This time, it was philosophical. Less hardware, more ethics. Less about can you build it? And more about should you? The problem: design an autonomous response system to manage a natural disaster, a system with full decision-making control in life and death scenarios. It had to be fast, reliable, and capable of prioritizing human lives during catastrophe. But here's the twist: in order to succeed, the AI would be allowed to override human input in real time. That meant the system might make calls that people disagreed with. It could redirect resources away from some lives to save others. It could choose who lived and who didn't. It was no longer a question of code. It was a question of conscience. And that was where everything cracked open. Emma sat with her sketchpad, thinking. Her team around her was quieter than usual. She kept looking up at the screens, where challenge prompts scrolled in red. Efficiency. Sacrifice. Morality. Would you let a system decide what a human cannot? Lisa watched her daughter and could feel the shift. Emma looked troubled, deeply so. Elon, meanwhile, seemed energized. This was a problem he had clearly thought about for years. He stood at the edge of the platform surrounded by a simulation of a hurricane-damaged coastline, directing his AI's learning model as if conducting a symphony. His system, Aegis, could process heat maps, infrastructure scans, and GPS rescue data in milliseconds. It calculated survivability indexes. Assigned priority levels. Made cold, clean choices. It's not emotional, he told a reporter. It's effective. You can't argue with math. But Emma could. She approached him cautiously. What if the math is wrong? Elon looked at her, curious. Meaning? What if the AI values someone less because of data it doesn't understand? What if it sees a disabled person as less likely to survive and skips them? It won't. We'll train it to avoid bias. But bias is in the data, Emma said. It's in the world. The AI will learn it, even if you don't tell it to. Elon's expression darkened slightly. We correct for that. Over time, it learns. But we're talking about right now, Elon. This system would be deciding who lives today. What if it's wrong even once? Then it still saves more than it loses. Emma went quiet. Her voice was soft. I don't think I can do that. I don't think I can build something that lets a machine choose who matters more. Elon exhaled. You're emotional. That's not a bad thing. But emotional decisions slow down rescue efforts. In disasters, seconds count. We need a system that moves faster than grief. Emma stared at him. Maybe. But speed without soul, that's not leadership. That's just automation. The room went quiet. Other engineers and assistants glanced between them. The girl who had taken the world by storm, and the man who had built rockets to Mars, now stood on opposite ends of the same mission. Lisa watched from the wings, holding her breath. Later, Emma sat alone in the control room with her AI model half-built on the screen. She knew how to make it efficient. She could beat Elon's performance scores, maybe even build something sleeker. But she couldn't escape the question in her mind. Who are you building this for? Jake entered quietly and sat down beside her. You okay? No. Want to talk about it? Emma hesitated. Then she looked at him. I think Elon's wrong. Jake looked surprised but didn't argue. She continued, I get that lives are on the line. I get that we can't wait around for committees. But if we build something that makes the hardest choice without human input, we're saying those lives aren't worth thinking about. We're saying, whatever saves the most, wins. And I don't think I believe that. Jake nodded. So what will you do? I'll build something different. Her voice was clear now. Steady. Unshaken. My system won't be faster, she said. But it will listen. It will ask for help. It will let people in, even when time is tight. Because no machine should be allowed to choose alone. The next morning, during the final presentation, Elon went first. He walked onto the stage and demonstrated Aegis, which had scored the highest efficiency rating in all simulations. In the earthquake scenario, it rerouted rescue drones in real time and minimized projected loss of life by 72%. The judges were impressed. Then Emma stepped forward. Her system was smaller. Less polished. But when the simulation began, a voice emerged from her interface, not robotic, but warm. It spoke to operators. It paused when human input was available. It even delayed action by 0.6 seconds if a conflict in moral weighting was detected. It was slower. But then it did something unexpected. In the final test run, when faced with a scenario where saving 5 people meant letting 1 child drown, Emma's system halted. It didn't freeze. It didn't fail. It asked. A prompt appeared. Are you sure? Child detected in danger. 5 adults detected in higher elevation. Total save ratio improves if child is ignored. Override. And the test operator pressed yes. The child was saved. All 5 adults were too. The margin was razor thin. But it worked. The room was silent. The judges didn't know what to say. Some called her model morally revolutionary. Others questioned its practicality. But one judge, a quiet woman from Stanford, leaned into her mic and said, "This is the first time I've seen an AI ask for grace." Emma exhaled. She had stayed true to herself. Afterward, backstage, Elon approached her. "You're right," he said. Emma blinked. "What?" "You were right to challenge me. It reminded me what we're doing this for." She smiled faintly. I wasn't trying to win. I know, Elon said. That's why you did. They shook hands again, not as opponents or even collaborators, but as equals. Two minds. One mission. Different philosophies. Same heart. And far beyond the walls of the challenge arena, in classrooms and homes, parents and teachers began showing that moment to kids, explaining not just how AI works, but why it matters who builds it. Because one little girl had the courage to say, machines can be smart, but they still need us to make them kind. The stage lights had dimmed. The applause had faded. Emma should have felt triumphant. After all, her approach to the AI rescue challenge had captured global attention. News outlets ran headlines like, "7-year-old genius teaches AI to ask for mercy," and "Emma Harper's humanity beats the machine." But something about Elon's reaction still sat oddly in her chest. He'd told her, "You were right." But there had been a flicker of hesitation. A pause before the words. And the way he looked at her afterward, it wasn't just respect. It was something else. Like relief. Or guilt. The next day, as the arena team reset the stage for the next round, Emma wandered backstage to where the challenge servers were housed. The AI simulations weren't just stored locally, they were managed on a custom framework Elon's team had designed, a hybrid network called Arcos, which operated like a live digital brain for each round. Emma had been granted limited access to her simulation data. But as she poked around, she found something strange, a secondary log directory. Hidden, not in the usual interface, but buried under a debug menu. It shouldn't have been there. And it shouldn't have been unlocked. But it was. And what she found made her breath catch. There, listed by timestamp and file key, were performance logs for every version of the AI models in the last challenge, including her own. Except, her model had two versions. Version 1.3.2, the one she built. And version 1.3.2b, same name. Same build time. But edited 42 minutes before the final test. Emma's heart skipped. She opened the second file. At first, it looked the same. But then she noticed something subtle. In her original code, when the AI encountered a moral conflict, it paused and prompted the operator. But in the edited version, there was an additional clause. If override_request equals null apply default save_priority equals child. That wasn't her logic. She had made the AI defer to the human. But in this modified version, if no answer was given in time, the AI defaulted to saving the child automatically. She whispered, "That's why the child survived." Her fingers shook. Her design hadn't saved all 6 people. It couldn't have with the delay she built in. Someone had altered the code just enough to make it succeed. And only one person had access to that override layer. Elon. Emma sat frozen, staring at the screen, the air in her lungs sharp like glass. He'd changed her model. Quietly. Without her knowledge. And then he had told her, "You were right." But he hadn't believed it. He had made sure her model didn't fail, not because he trusted it, but because he didn't want the world to see it fail. She backed away from the terminal and walked out into the hallway, heart pounding in her chest like a war drum. She found him alone in the green room, sipping tea and reading something on a holographic tablet. "You changed it," she said without preamble. He looked up. His expression didn't register surprise. "Not exactly." Emma stepped forward. "You edited my model. You changed the outcome." Elon set the tablet down carefully. "I was trying to protect you." "By lying?" Her voice rose, trembling. "I didn't lie. You let me believe it worked exactly how I built it. But it didn't. You added a line of code. You made sure it saved the child." Elon stood. "Because you were right. But I didn't want to risk the audience missing that because of a limitation you hadn't accounted for yet." Emma stepped back. So you thought I couldn't handle failing? No, he said. I thought the world couldn't handle you failing. She stared at him. You mean they wouldn't believe me anymore? He didn't answer. Emma's throat tightened. That's not your choice. I know, Elon said, softly. And I'm sorry. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a drive. This has the unedited log. I was going to give it to you after the next challenge. I didn't want the moment lost. Emma didn't take it. This was supposed to be my story, she said. Not yours. I know. A long silence stretched between them. Finally, Emma asked, why? Elon hesitated. Because I've been you. She looked up. I know what it's like to feel everything's riding on a single moment. I've stood in front of boards and investors and cameras with ideas no one believed in. And I've seen what happens when you show the world something too early. It doesn't inspire them, it scares them. Or worse, they stop listening. You had something powerful. But the execution wasn't perfect yet. So I gave it a nudge. Emma blinked away tears. You didn't trust them to see the good. No, Elon said. I didn't trust them to understand you. Emma turned and walked out without saying another word. That night, she sat with Jake and Lisa in their suite, the drive untouched beside her. She told them everything. Lisa looked furious. Jake looked sad. So what now? Lisa asked. Emma said slowly, I think I have to tell the truth. Lisa looked alarmed. To the press? Emma shook her head. No. To the audience. She stood, her face flushed with emotion. This whole thing started with one promise, that I'd build from my heart. I can't let it turn into something fake. Not even a little. Lisa hugged her. Then we're behind you. The next morning, Emma asked for time before the next challenge to make a public statement. The request was unexpected, but granted. Standing alone on the same stage where she had just earned the world's admiration, Emma looked directly into the camera. Hi, she said. It's me again. People around the world paused to listen. In classrooms, offices, living rooms, millions watched. I want to talk about what happened in the last challenge. About the AI that made a hard choice. The truth is, the version you saw wasn't mine. Not exactly. Someone made a small change to make sure it worked better. I didn't know at the time. And I didn't ask for it. She looked down, then back up. At first, I was really upset. I felt like something had been stolen. But now I think I understand. I think the person who changed it believed in me, so much that they didn't want the world to stop listening. But the only way I can keep telling this story, is if it stays real. She took a breath. So here's what I've learned, even heroes can make mistakes. Even geniuses can make bad choices for good reasons. But honesty matters more than being right. And next time, I'll take the failure. Because every failure is a part of the story, too. The room was silent. And then, slowly, applause broke out. Not polite. Not obligatory. Real. Elon watched from the wings. And though he didn't smile, something softened in his face. He knew, then, that the student had passed the teacher, not because she outbuilt him, but because she had more courage than he did when it mattered. Later, she found him backstage again. I still want to finish the challenge, she said. But I'll be building everything myself from now on. He nodded. You always were. And without another word, she turned and walked away, into the next chapter of her journey. The rules changed overnight. The Genius Challenge, already known for its grueling pace and pressure cooker environment, dropped a bombshell. For the next round, contestants would be given just 6 hours to complete their most complex task yet. No preparation. No hints. No advance access to materials. Just a sealed room, a ticking clock, and the expectation that only the most adaptable, resilient minds would survive. When Emma entered the challenge dome that morning, she could already feel the shift. The air was different, cool, dry, charged with a strange anticipation. Every assistant, producer, and technician looked wired, like they'd all slept badly and had too much coffee. She was directed into a glass-walled lab in the center of the stage, sealed off from the others, a single workstation at its core. A countdown timer hovered above the table, 6 hours. The host's voice echoed over the speaker system. Welcome to the most intense round yet. Today's challenge will test not only your intelligence but your ability to adapt under pressure. Your mission, revealed now. A screen lit up. Design and prototype a low-cost, rapidly deployable water purification system capable of sustaining a village of 1,000 people for at least 30 days, using only the materials provided in the room. Emma blinked. That wasn't just hard. That was insane. Water purification at scale. On the fly. With no internet access, no outside help, and a pile of unfamiliar parts. It was a challenge even professional engineers would struggle to tackle in a week. She felt a jolt of fear hit her stomach, her throat tightening. The timer began to tick down. 5 hours 59 minutes and 59 seconds. She scanned the room. There were bins full of pipes, filters, wires, clear canisters, hand tools, microcontrollers, solar panels, buckets, old engine parts, and, strangely, bags of activated charcoal, layers of crushed rock and sand, and a few bottles of iodine. A little bit of science. A little bit of junk. No instruction. Just intuition. The whole world was watching. Emma stood frozen for a second, unsure of where to begin. Her mind felt blank. And then something snapped. She sat down, pulled out her notebook, and drew a line. In, polluted water. Out, safe, clean water. She scribbled fast, breath shallow. Her brain kicked into overdrive. Layered filtration. Gravity fed. No electric pumps, they'd fail in remote areas. She needed simplicity. Durability. Systems that anyone could maintain with local materials. She remembered something from a science kit her mom had bought her: you can mimic natural filtration with rock, sand, and carbon. She started building a prototype with clear cylinders, layering the materials in sequence: large stones at the bottom, then gravel, then fine sand, and finally a layer of activated charcoal at the top. She drilled small outlets at the bottom of each cylinder to channel water into the next phase. 5 hours 21 minutes and 44 seconds. Next problem, purification. Filtering wasn't enough. The water would still need to be sterilized. She eyed the iodine bottles. Chemical sterilization, too bitter for long-term use. Then she saw the solar panels and remembered a method from a YouTube documentary she'd once watched about a village in Kenya: SODIs, solar water disinfection. You expose clear bottles of water to sunlight for 6 hours, and UVA rays kill most pathogens. But that wouldn't be fast enough for the challenge. She needed something better. Her eyes darted to the microcontrollers. Could she build a small UV sterilization unit? The parts were there. Barely. She got to work. 4 hours 47 minutes and 19 seconds. Wires. Diodes. UVC LEDs. She soldered quickly, with hands steadier than they had any right to be. A small solar panel fed into a capacitor, storing just enough charge to power the LEDs for short bursts. She rigged the system to run in cycles: water would flow into the LED chamber after filtration, stop, bathe in UV light, then move on. She tested the flow using dirty water provided in sealed containers labeled with simulated contaminants. The first trial? Murky, slow. The filters clogged. Emma unscrewed the top cylinder, adjusted the sand grade, and tried again. Better. Still too slow. She redesigned the feed. Instead of vertical gravity, she switched to a diagonal configuration, using siphoning tubes to maintain flow between levels. It wasn't perfect, but it cut filtration time by almost 40%. 3 hours 33 minutes and 12 seconds. The UV unit started sparking. Emma bit her lip. The capacitor was overheating. She hadn't added a voltage regulator. She cursed under her breath, reached for the parts bin, and found a tiny resistor she hadn't seen before. She fixed the circuit, added a switch, and reinforced the housing with plastic she melted over a candle. 3 hours and 4 minutes. Her face was streaked with sweat and smudged with carbon dust. At one point, she dropped a screwdriver and burst into tears, not because she was hurt, but because her fingers ached and she couldn't lose time. She wiped her face, sniffled, and kept going. The arena was silent except for the quiet ticking of the clock. 2 hours 16 minutes and 55 seconds. She finally had the full prototype connected. Input water multi-stage filter holding chamber UV sterilization unit output spigot. It looked like a strange Frankenstein of camping gear and junkyard tubing, but it worked. She tested it. The first round came out visibly cleaner. The second, clearer still. Then she opened the test kit. A chemical strip that would change color depending on contaminants. She dipped it in. Waited. Green. Then she dipped another, bacteria test. Waited. Another green light. It was working. But there was still one last problem, scale. This system could filter enough for maybe 100 people. Not 1,000. She sat down, exhausted, staring at the tubes. There was no time to build 10 more. No time to start over. Then it hit her. Modularity. What if the system wasn't one machine, but a blueprint? A replicable design using standard parts anyone could build in under an hour? She scrambled to her tablet and created a visual guide, a color-coded layout with clear steps, diagrams, and part lists. She made it simple enough that a teenager in any country could build it using found materials. She labeled it, Clean Water V1, designed by everyone. 41 minutes and 8 seconds. When the host returned, they found Emma sitting on the floor beside her rig, holding a clear plastic bottle filled with purified water. She stood, wiped her hands on her pants, and said, "I'm done." The host blinked. "You completed it?" "Fully functional," she said, voice hoarse but steady. "Self-powered, modular, field scalable. Built for replication. If you give me 20 minutes and some buckets, I can teach anyone here how to make another one." The crowd behind the glass erupted into cheers. The judges inspected it. Verified the test strips. Ran a quick microbial scan. The results were better than anyone had expected. One judge, a former UN water crisis consultant, walked over and shook Emma's hand. "You didn't just win this challenge," she said. "You might have just saved 100,000 lives." Emma didn't react right away. She was too tired to feel much of anything. But then she looked at the bottle again. Clear water. Life. Something no one could fake. And she smiled. Later, in the green room, Elon came in. He didn't say anything at first. Just looked at the contraption she'd built, now disassembled on a cart beside her. He finally said, "It took us 5 years to build a water unit that cost less than $300. Yours costs $22 in parts." Emma looked at him. "And works with sunlight and gravity." He nodded slowly. "You're pushing the world forward." She looked at him. Not alone. They didn't shake hands. Not this time. This time, it was a quiet nod between warriors who had survived the same fire. Because sometimes, genius isn't about the answers. It's about the courage to try, when the clock is running out. Emma hadn't planned to check her mail that week. Everything had been digital for months. Letters were a thing of the past, like rotary phones, encyclopedias, and gas-powered cars. But the envelope waiting for her in the hotel suite that evening was unlike anything else she'd received. It was thick. Heavy. Cream-colored parchment with flecks of fiber in the paper. No return address. Just her name handwritten on the front in ink that looked old. Emma Harper. She turned it over slowly and saw a strange embossed symbol on the wax seal. A falcon, wings spread over a gear. She didn't recognize it, but it felt important, ancient, even. Lisa was on the phone across the room when Emma said softly, "Mom." Lisa turned, took one look at the letter, and stopped cold. Her voice dropped. "Where did you get that?" Emma held it up. "It was delivered just now." Lisa walked over, her face pale. "That seal. I haven't seen that in years." "What is it?" Lisa hesitated. Then she reached into her purse, pulled out a tiny silver locket, and opened it. Inside, along with a small photo of a baby-faced Emma, was the same falcon gear symbol, etched into the metal. "My grandfather used it," Lisa said. "He was an inventor. Brilliant. Quiet. Never wanted fame. He used that symbol as his private mark. I haven't seen it since he died." Emma's breath caught. "But how could anyone else have it?" Lisa looked shaken. "I don't know." Emma carefully broke the seal. Inside was a folded sheet of heavy paper and a second item, an old photograph. In the photo, a man with tired eyes and thick-rimmed glasses stood beside someone unmistakable, a young Elon Musk. Emma's hands shook as she unfolded the letter. The handwriting was tight, neat, and formal. To Emma Harper. If you're reading this, then the time has come. You may not know my name, but I knew your mother before she was born. And I worked alongside a young man who is now the reason you're here, reading this letter. Elon was only 18 when I met him. Obsessed with the future, full of ideas, but lacking grounding. I helped him build his first early neural interface models, before the public knew what Neuralink or AI even meant. We disagreed often. But he was always chasing something greater than himself. You, Emma, are that something. Years ago, I predicted there would come a child who could think faster than the systems we created. A mind unburdened by fear, not tied down by the weight of cynicism. When I saw your early sketches, yes, I saw them, I knew. This competition. It's not just about solving problems. It's a test. One I helped design decades ago, when Elon and I talked about what kind of mind the future would require. He wouldn't tell you this, but your success means more to him than you realize. Not because he wants to win, but because he wants to believe the next generation can handle what we couldn't. You've already shown restraint where we pushed. Compassion where we calculated. That matters. Keep going. There is more coming, more than you've imagined. And soon, a decision no algorithm can make will land at your feet. When it does, remember this. The machine can learn, but only the heart knows why. A friend of your family. And Elon's. Emma read the letter twice, then again. Her heart pounded. She handed it silently to her mom, who read it slowly, tears forming in the corners of her eyes. Jake, who had just walked in, took one look at them and said, "What happened?" Emma handed him the photograph. "Apparently, this whole thing started before I was born." Jake stared at it. "That's Elon, right?" Emma nodded. "And my great-grandfather." Lisa whispered, "He never talked about Elon. But he always used to say, the future doesn't belong to us. It belongs to someone who hasn't arrived yet." I never understood what he meant. Now Emma did. The letter didn't give instructions. It didn't tell her what to build next or how to win the next challenge. But it did something else, something deeper. It showed her that she wasn't walking this path alone. Someone had believed in her long before she ever entered a spotlight. Someone had planned for this, had trusted that one day, a child would rise to make sense of the chaos left behind. Emma sat by the window for a long time that night, the city humming outside. Her mind spun with questions. What had Elon meant to her great-grandfather? How much did Elon know about her family? And why hadn't he said anything? But the biggest question of all wasn't about the past. It was about the future. What decision was coming? She didn't have to wait long to find out. The next morning, she was called into a private meeting with the challenge board. Not in the dome. Not on camera. Behind closed doors, she sat across from 5 people, scientists, philanthropists, and global advisors. Elon was not present. A tall woman in a gray blazer leaned forward and said, "Emma, we're making a special request. One that wasn't part of the original competition." Emma swallowed. "What is it?" The woman laid down a tablet. On the screen was a satellite image of a village near the base of a mountain. Roads destroyed. Mudslides visible from above. Power out. The area was in chaos. This is in northern Pakistan. A real disaster. It happened just last night. And they're cut off. No communication. No clean water. No power grid. Aid is delayed because of dangerous terrain. But. She tapped the tablet. We've airlifted your water purification prototype. A test unit. It's being dropped with a small team of relief workers, under your design, under your name. Emma stared at the screen. We need to know, the woman said, if you're ready for this. This isn't theory anymore. This is real. Emma's throat tightened. I'm just a kid. The woman smiled gently. You're the only one who built something fast enough, simple enough, and brilliant enough to work without training. Emma looked down at her hands. Dirt still under her fingernails from the last build. Okay, she whispered. Let's do it. The board nodded. Then, just as Emma stood to leave, another board member, a quiet older man with silver hair, slid a second folder across the table. One more thing, he said. Someone has asked to see you. Privately. Emma opened the folder. It wasn't a photo or a mission file. It was a handwritten letter. 3 lines. The real challenge starts now. Bring the letter you received. Come alone to Hangar 7, 10 p.m. No signature. Just the Falcon and gear. The night air was thick with tension as Emma stepped out of the cab in front of Hangar 7. It sat at the edge of a decommissioned aerospace testing facility, miles from the competition stage and far from any lights or people. The building loomed like a giant relic of another era, corrugated steel siding, rust-stained beams, and an air of forgotten secrets. The wind carried the sharp tang of oil and dust. Emma clutched the letter tightly in one hand, her hoodie zipped to her chin, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. This is crazy, she thought. I'm 7. I should be in bed. Not creeping around secret hangars following cryptic notes. But she kept walking. The huge sliding door groaned open with unexpected ease, revealing a cavernous dark interior. Inside, a single pool of warm light glowed from beneath a spiral staircase that descended through the floor into darkness. No guards. No signs. No cameras. Just silence. Emma hesitated. Then she whispered to herself, "You've come this far." And stepped inside. She followed the stairs, each step echoing like a bell. The further down she went, the cooler the air became. Concrete walls gave way to a corridor lined with embedded LEDs and carbon fiber paneling. The air smelled like ozone and copper. Whatever was down here, it wasn't abandoned. At the end of the hallway stood a door with no handle. Just a single sensor pad and a small groove, perfectly shaped to fit the wax seal she had carried from the letter. Slowly, she placed it into the groove. The door hissed and slid open. The room beyond looked like something from another world. No, the future. It was shaped like a dome, with silver walls glowing softly and thousands of tiny digital feeds flowing across the surfaces. In the center stood a curved workstation ringed with displays, holographic projections spinning in midair, maps, formulas, satellite feeds, DNA structures, chemical chains. And standing at the center, quietly adjusting the dials, was Elon Musk. He turned as she stepped in, his expression unreadable. "I was wondering if you'd come," he said. Emma took a cautious step forward. "You sent the letter?" "No," he replied. "But I knew who would. And I knew where it would lead you." She stepped closer. "What is this place?" Elon turned slowly in a full circle, as if presenting it. "This is the vault. It was built 10 years ago, designed to be the central brain for every crisis management system we've ever developed, climate modeling, medical AI, drone swarms, interplanetary telemetry, even behavioral prediction algorithms." He looked at her. "And it's never been used." Emma blinked. "Why not?" "Because," Elon said, "we couldn't decide who should control it." Silence. Emma took in the walls again. The data. The scale. This wasn't a lab. It was a control room. For the future. "Your great-grandfather helped build the original prototype," Elon said. "He believed it could save the world. But only if the person guiding it deserved that responsibility." Emma frowned. "And you didn't?" Elon gave a small, sad smile. "Maybe I did. But I doubted myself. I saw too much compromise, too much politics, too much ego. I was afraid I'd end up using it the wrong way. That it would become a weapon, not a tool." He gestured toward her. "Then you came along." Emma narrowed her eyes. "So this whole competition, this was a test?" "Partly." Elon's tone was calm, almost regretful. "Yes, it was real. Yes, we wanted to push minds to solve impossible problems. But it was also a search. For someone who could face complexity without corruption. Someone who could build like an engineer, choose like a leader, and care like a human being." Emma took a step back, her voice rising. "You should have told me. You should have told everyone." "And what would they have done?" he asked quietly. "Tried to influence you. To buy you off. The world doesn't believe in purity anymore, Emma. They believe in profit." She clenched her fists. "Then why let me find out it all?" "Because," Elon said, "it's time to choose." He pressed a button, and a platform rose from the floor, revealing a clear panel. Underneath it was a simple interface, one glowing button. "Activate." Emma stared. "If you press it," Elon said, "the vault goes live. Fully operational. Connected to every system I just described. You'll have the world's most advanced intelligence platform at your fingertips. And we'll follow your lead. I promise you that." She looked at him in disbelief. "You want me to be in charge?" He nodded. "Not forever. Just for the first step. To shape its core values. To set the standard." Emma turned away, overwhelmed. "But I don't know enough. I don't have answers for the whole world." "No one does," Elon replied. "But you have something better, questions. You ask the right ones. You care enough to think through consequences. That's more important than knowledge." Emma stared down at the glowing button. "So that's it?" She whispered. "One push and I become, what? A world leader?" "No," he said. "You become a guide. A signal. And the vault follows your signal. She turned the letter over in her pocket, hearing the words again, "The machine can learn, but only the heart knows why." "What happens if I don't press it?" she asked. Elon's expression shifted. "Then it stays locked. Possibly forever. And we go back to fragmented systems, broken networks, and patchwork solutions. The same old cycle." Emma was quiet for a long time. Then she said, softly, "This feels like a trap." He blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, it's too easy," she said. "You put this incredible system in front of a child, and you say, 'You're pure,' you decide. But what if this is just another shortcut? What if the real answer isn't about one person making the choice, but a way to make sure no one ever makes it alone?" Elon stared at her. "You don't want a savior," Emma said. "You want a compass. But that's not what we need. We need a conversation." She stepped back from the panel. "I won't activate it. Not yet." Elon's voice was quiet. "Why?" "Because it's not ready," she said. "Not until every child like me has a voice in it. Not until it's taught by more than just the best and the brightest, but also the bravest. The most honest. The ones who live the problems it's supposed to fix." Elon exhaled slowly. "You sound like your great-grandfather." Emma looked up. "Then maybe that means we're on the right path." He didn't press her. Didn't beg or argue. He simply nodded, then walked to the terminal and dimmed the lights around the vault. "You'll have access," he said. "When you're ready. You'll know what to do." Emma turned and walked back up the stairs, her thoughts spinning, her heart strangely light. Because for the first time since the whole thing began, the question wasn't "Can I do this?" It was "How do I help others do it too?" The Grand Hall of the United Nations was unlike anything Emma had ever seen. Towering ceilings arched high above a sea of polished wood desks, each marked with a country's flag. Hundreds of delegates and world leaders filled the room, their voices murmuring in dozens of languages. Bright lights hung from the ceiling, aimed down on a central stage equipped with microphones, cameras, and digital screens. The energy in the air was thick, equal parts anticipation and skepticism. Emma stood backstage, feeling a swirl of nerves and excitement. Just days ago, she was a kid struggling to understand a letter and a hidden lab. Now, she was about to speak in front of some of the most powerful people on Earth. Her mother Lisa squeezed her shoulder gently. "You've got this. Remember what you said in the vault. It's not about being perfect. It's about being honest." Emma nodded, taking a deep breath. Then the stage manager called her name. Stepping onto the stage, she saw rows of expectant faces. Cameras flashed. The room fell silent. She looked out and saw Elon Musk sitting near the front row, nodding encouragingly. Emma began, her voice steady but soft, "Good morning. My name is Emma Harper. I'm 7 years old. And I'm here to talk about the future. Not just mine, but everyone's." She paused, scanning the room. "Recently, I was given a choice, to activate a system so powerful, it could control everything from disaster relief to global resources. But I chose not to, because I realized something important: leadership isn't about control. It's about connection." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. She continued, "We live in a world filled with complexity, and no one person can solve every problem. We need a conversation, a global conversation where every voice matters. From children to elders, from the richest cities to the smallest villages." Emma clicked a button on the remote in her hand, and a map of the world appeared behind her, dotted with glowing points. "This is a network I've been building with help from friends, family, and mentors. It's a platform where people can share ideas, solutions, and stories. Where real problems meet real people willing to help." She spoke about the recent disaster in Pakistan, the water purifier prototype being tested there, and how technology only works if it connects to human hearts and communities. She explained the letter, the vault, and her conversation with Elon Musk. "Technology is a tool," she said. "But compassion is the engine. If we combine them, if we listen to each other, we can build a future that's not just smart, but kind." As she spoke, she felt the room shift. The faces that once seemed guarded began to soften. Heads nodded. Questions formed. After her speech, the floor opened for discussion. Delegates asked her about her ideas for governance, equity, and how children could be included in decision-making. She answered honestly, sometimes stumbling over big words but always returning to her core message: we need to listen more. Elon approached her after the session, smiling warmly. "You did better than I expected." Emma smiled back. "I was scared." He laughed softly. "Good. Fear keeps you grounded. But courage carries you forward." That night, in her hotel room overlooking the city lights, Emma reflected on what had happened. The summit was just the beginning. She'd made friends with diplomats, scientists, and activists. She'd learned that leadership was messy, full of disagreement and compromise. But it was also real. She thought of the letter's final words: "The machine can learn, but only the heart knows why." Emma realized that was her mission, not just to build machines or solve equations, but to remind the world why it mattered to try. The next day, news outlets buzzed with stories about the 7-year-old genius who challenged Elon Musk. Interviews, panels, even cartoons. But Emma didn't mind the spotlight. She had bigger plans: to keep the conversation alive, to build bridges between people, and to remind the world that even the youngest voices could change the future. Because sometimes, the smallest spark could ignite the greatest fire. Launching the platform was supposed to be the easy part. After all, Emma had spent months designing it, testing it with her friends, and refining the idea of a global conversation where voices from every corner of the world could come together to solve real problems. But when the day came, reality hit like a thunderclap. The morning started with a technical glitch. The servers overloaded as thousands of people logged on at once, flooding the system with comments, questions, and proposals. The digital map Emma had envisioned, a vibrant, living network, turned into a frozen screen, spinning wheels, and error messages. Engineers scrambled to stabilize the site, but the pressure was immense. Within hours, the platform faced coordinated cyber attacks. Hackers tried to disrupt conversations, spread misinformation, and shut down connections. Emma's heart sank as she watched the attacks unfold. This wasn't just a test of technology, it was a test of trust. But amidst the chaos, something remarkable happened. The users themselves, teachers in Brazil, farmers in Kenya, engineers in Germany, students in Japan, banded together. They flagged fake accounts, translated urgent messages for one another, and shared solutions to local problems. The platform wasn't just a tool, it was becoming a community. Emma realized her greatest challenge wasn't the technology, but the human element. People disagreed. Cultures clashed. Misinformation spread faster than facts. She saw firsthand how hard it was to unite a divided world, even with the best intentions. Late nights became the norm. Emma and her team held virtual town halls, bringing experts and everyday users together. They developed guidelines rooted in respect, empathy, and fact-checking. Slowly, the network stabilized and grew stronger. One evening, as Emma logged off, she received a message from a small village in Nepal. They'd used the platform to share their experiences with landslides and water shortages. Using data pooled from users worldwide, Emma's team helped coordinate emergency aid and sustainable solutions. It was a glimpse of the future she dreamed about. But Emma also knew the road ahead was long. The platform was more than a project, it was a promise. A promise that every voice, no matter how small, mattered in shaping tomorrow. Emma trusted Jake more than anyone outside her family. From the early competition rounds to late-night design sessions, he'd been there, steady, brilliant, fiercely loyal. He had helped her refine her algorithms, brainstorm strategies, and even debug early versions of the platform that was now lighting up screens in over 60 countries. She saw him as a big brother, sometimes even a co-founder. That's why it hurt so much when the truth came out. It began with a leak. A confidential section of the network's code, one that hadn't been made public, somehow ended up on a fringe tech blog. At first, Emma assumed it was just an accident. Someone from the open-source development community might have mistakenly uploaded a test branch. It happened. But then a second leak hit, a list of IPs associated with flagged users, including personal metadata. Nothing classified, but enough to stir panic and draw criticism from global press. Headlines blared across media outlets. Emma Harper's platform compromised, privacy in question. The network's core promise had been trust. And now that trust was in jeopardy. Her internal team, composed of vetted volunteers and cybersecurity analysts, launched a full audit. Emma, exhausted and heart-heavy, didn't want to believe it. But 3 days later, the answer came back with devastating clarity. The access logs pointed to a single user. An administrative backdoor created weeks ago. The signature in the code had been masked but not perfectly. The audit software stripped away the layers, and underneath it, a digital fingerprint Emma knew well. Jake. He'd created the backdoor himself. Emma stared at the screen in stunned silence, her breath shallow. Her chest felt like it was caving in. Lisa sat beside her, reading the report, face drawn with disbelief. Why? Emma whispered. Why would he do this? Lisa didn't answer. Because the answer wasn't clear. Emma summoned Jake the next day. They met in the old fabrication lab where they'd first built prototypes. The room still smelled like solder and machine oil. Emma stood near the door, arms crossed, watching Jake as he arrived with the same calm grin he always wore. Hey, he said. You wanted to meet? Emma didn't smile. She held up a tablet with the report open. I know it was you. Jake froze. His face flickered, surprise, then guilt, then something else. He stepped forward, tried to speak, but Emma cut him off. You created a backdoor, leaked part of the system, and exposed people's data. Tell me why. Jake sat down heavily on a workbench. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Emma's voice cracked. Then what was it supposed to be? He looked up, eyes heavy with regret. I thought I was protecting you. And the project. Do you know how many governments and companies were watching your every move? Some of them were offering money, serious money, for influence. I started to get nervous. What if someone got in and twisted your code for their own agenda? I created the backdoor as a way to monitor things. Quietly. I never intended to use it. But you did, Emma said coldly. Jake winced. I leaked the code because I thought if I put just a piece out there, people would start building clones. Spin-offs. It would force your hand. Make it open source before it got bought out or shut down. I didn't trust the people behind the curtain, Emma. Emma's heart pounded. You didn't trust me. Jake looked crushed. I didn't think you'd understand. Tears stung the edges of Emma's vision. I understood more than you realized. But you didn't even give me the chance. Silence hung thick in the air. I believed in you, she said softly. I thought we were building something that belonged to everyone. Not just something you could protect by breaking. Jake stood slowly. Then I guess I failed. Emma didn't nod. Didn't respond. Her chest felt like it had been split in two. I have to ask you to leave, she said at last. Not just the project. Everything. I can't risk another betrayal. Jake's face twisted in pain, but he nodded. I understand. And then he was gone. The days that followed were some of the hardest Emma had ever faced. The media swarmed around the betrayal like vultures. Doubts grew louder. Critics questioned whether a child could truly manage a global network. Conspiracy theories cropped up. Was the whole project a stunt? Was Elon pulling the strings? But Emma didn't fold. She took to the airwaves herself. In a live stream viewed by millions, she admitted the breach, explained the steps they were taking to rebuild the security model, and most importantly, owned the mistake. "I trusted someone," she said. "And they made a choice that hurt the community. But I believe trust is still worth giving. Mistakes don't define us. What we do after them does." Her honesty resonated. Around the world, users rallied. Developers contributed patches. Activists from communities most affected by the data leak stepped forward, not to condemn her, but to help her fix the system. She didn't hide behind teams or lawyers. She showed up. And just like that, the storm began to pass. Emma spent long nights reworking the core infrastructure of the platform. She implemented a completely transparent oversight model, no hidden code, no backdoors, no secrets. Everything would be open source moving forward, and she built a people's board, made up of community members from every continent, who would vote on future changes and policies. Lisa watched her daughter work from across the kitchen table late one night. Emma's face was tired but resolute. "You've grown," Lisa said gently. Emma looked up, her eyes red from screen glare. "I feel like I've aged a decade in a week." Lisa smiled softly. "Sometimes pain gives us clarity. And clarity gives us power." Emma nodded. "I just wish I didn't have to learn it like this." She turned back to her screen. But deep inside, something had shifted. The betrayal had cut her, but it had also refined her. She saw now that leadership wasn't about perfection, it was about accountability. It was about holding others accountable and holding herself accountable. Even when it hurt. Especially when it hurt. She didn't need to be flawless. She needed to be real. And that would be enough. The notification came in at 2:13 a.m. Emma was asleep, curled up in a blanket on the couch with 3 open laptops around her, a half-eaten protein bar still in her hand. Lisa, tiptoeing through the living room with a cup of chamomile tea, glanced at the screen when she heard the ping. A blinking red alert read, "Urgent signal, interplanetary, colony Mars, 07/Priority Alpha." Lisa stared at it for a second, then gently shook Emma's shoulder. "Honey, wake up. It's Mars." Emma sat up fast, blinking the sleep from her eyes. "What?" Lisa turned the laptop toward her. Emma read the words and snapped, fully awake. In seconds, she was on her feet, her fingers flying across the keyboard. No one on Earth had heard from Mars 07 in almost a year. The colony, one of the first fully autonomous off-world installations, had gone dark after a dust storm damaged its comms array. At least, that was the official story. Most people assumed the delay was just bureaucracy, or a technical snag. But now, a live ping, encrypted with an outdated but verified Musk-era security signature, was blinking on her screen. Emma decrypted the message and stared as lines of text filled the window. To Emma Harper. From Command Node, Mars 07. Status, critical. Human life remains stable under quarantine protocol. Primary system failure imminent without immediate intervention. Artificial ecosystem destabilized by unforeseen mutation. Recommend, Earth-level coordinated response. Additional note, personal. Message pericoded by E.M. Emma, if you're seeing this, I was right to trust you. The system we built here is based on your platform, a trial version, adapted for OFF world autonomy. The colony's survival now depends on global intelligence. I believe you know what to do. Emma's heart dropped. They had copied her platform. Not the final open source version, but an earlier build. One with bugs. One before the transparency model. Before the community governance. And now, Mars 07, humanity's first permanent foothold beyond Earth, was about to collapse. She opened the attached system files and saw what Elon had done. He'd implemented a hybrid AI ecosystem built around the original vault structure. The colony's life support, agriculture, weather regulation, and decision-making were all managed by an early autonomous system, inspired by her. But there was a problem. A synthetic gene sequence, part of an engineered plant system for oxygen and food generation, had mutated. It wasn't malicious, just unstable. But it had triggered cascading failures in the automated logic of the ecosystem. Machines were watering the wrong zones. Oxygen processors were working overtime. A complete shutdown was now hours away. She had to act fast. By morning, Emma had assembled her core team via emergency protocol. Lisa sat beside her. She was barely acting like a mom anymore, more like a co-director, fully locked in. They had engineers in Switzerland, a botanist from South Africa, a synthetic ecologist from Tokyo, and a former astronaut from Houston, all patched into the secure network Emma called the Dome, a virtual mirror of her original summit stage. Emma stood in front of her laptop camera, hair messy, voice hoarse. The Mars system is crashing because it's missing the one thing that made our platform work: diverse, human oversight. The group nodded. They dove in. They started by isolating the mutation. The gene had been written to be resilient in Martian soil, but the atmospheric fluctuations had triggered a dormant sequence. The plant's root behavior had changed, absorbing too much CO2 and releasing unstable nitrogen oxides. Over time, the AI detected a drop in oxygen efficiency but interpreted it as underperformance, not a mutation. It doubled growth cycles. That only made things worse. The irony was brutal: the machines were doing exactly what they were told. Too well. Emma leaned forward, exhausted but determined. We need to build a human override interface into their AI. Not one person. A panel, like ours. But remote. Decentralized. Interplanetary. You're proposing a governance system for Mars? One team member asked. Emma didn't blink. Not just for Mars. For anywhere AI systems are making life and death decisions without human moral reasoning. It took 11 minutes to send a full command packet to Mars. The delay felt unbearable, but Emma was used to waiting. She coded quickly, building a simplified interface that echoed her own network structure: open-loop feedback, transparent logging, multi-party voting mechanisms, and a signal priority override based on consensus, not hierarchy. The team deployed it as a patch. They called it Project Polaris, a guiding light, even in the darkest unknown. When the first confirmation ping came back from Mars, everyone exhaled. System overrides engaged. Oxygen stabilizers recalibrated. Water dispersal systems paused. The synthetic root mutations were manually suppressed via targeted UV spectrum blasts from agricultural drones. A second signal arrived 4 hours later. Status: stabilized. AI system modified, Polaris active. Human life support, 97% stable. Message to Earth: thank you, Emma. Emma stared at the words, tears forming. The platform she'd once feared might divide the world had just saved the first colony on another one. But the implications were only just beginning to ripple out. That night, as Emma sat with her mom on the balcony overlooking a glowing skyline, the stars above looked different. Not just because she'd saved people on Mars, but because she now understood what was truly at stake. This was never just about technology, she said softly. It was about what kind of civilization we're becoming. One where machines serve us, or one where they replace us. Lisa nodded slowly. You've done more than some leaders do in a lifetime, Emma. Emma didn't smile. She was thinking too hard. Elon trusted me with the vault, she said. But he also trusted me with something bigger, a choice. And I think this was the next part of that choice. Not, can we survive on another planet, but should we, and how do we stay human if we do? Lisa was quiet for a long time. Then she asked gently, what's next? Emma turned her face toward the stars. Connection, she said. We build a version of Polaris for every major AI system, on Earth, off Earth, wherever we go. One platform. One shared language. Human-centered intelligence. Lisa's voice trembled. And who leads it? Emma looked back at her mom and said the words without hesitation. Everyone. The offer came in a sealed envelope, hand-delivered by a diplomat from the World Technological Council. Thick ivory paper, heavy with intention. Emma stared at it as it sat on her desk, untouched for hours, while outside her window, the world was already beginning to shift around her. The Mars intervention had gone public, and the media dubbed it the Polaris moment. For the first time in history, a child had helped redirect an interplanetary crisis, not with weapons, not with control, but with cooperation. Global reactions were electric. Governments scrambled to restructure their AI programs to mimic Emma's decentralized model. Universities renamed courses after her. The UN issued a resolution declaring her network the most promising advancement in ethical AI since the dawn of the digital age. But with all the praise came something else, a heavy, quiet pressure. And now, the envelope. Lisa sat across from Emma in silence. Her eyes were tired. She hadn't slept more than a few hours a night in weeks. Neither had Emma. Are you going to open it? Her mom asked. Emma didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, she walked to the window. Below, the skyline of New York shimmered with artificial brilliance. Giant screens flashed her face. The headlines no longer asked who she was. They asked what she would do next. I read once, Emma said, that most people don't realize when the most important moment of their life is happening. But I do. It's right now. Lisa smiled softly. Then you're ahead of most adults. Emma turned and picked up the envelope. Her fingers trembled slightly as she tore the seal and unfolded the paper. It was brief. Direct. Too calm for what it said. Emma Harper, by unanimous vote of the World Technological Council, you are hereby offered the inaugural position of Global Ethics Director for Artificial Intelligence Systems, with full authority to oversee, mediate, and guide policy and implementation of AI technologies across all WTC member nations. This position will come with sovereign-level clearance, transnational jurisdiction, and access to the Global Vault system, including full Polaris protocol deployment rights. We understand this is an unprecedented responsibility. We also understand there is no one else more trusted to carry it. Should you accept, transition protocols begin immediately. A private campus will be built for you. Education will be tailored. Travel restricted for security. You will not be a child in the usual sense. But you will be, in many ways, a leader of the future. Emma read it twice. 3 times. Then folded it carefully and set it down. Lisa stared at her. That's enormous. Emma nodded. It's everything I've worked for. And everything they expect from you, Lisa added gently. Emma sat on the edge of her bed. Her feet didn't quite touch the ground. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. But something in her felt suddenly far away. I thought I was building something that belonged to everyone, she said. But the more it works, the more people want to hand me the keys and say, you take care of it. Like it's easier to just make me the answer. Lisa didn't speak for a moment. Then she said, do you remember what you said the day you walked away from the vault? Emma looked up. That no one should make the big decisions alone. Lisa nodded. Maybe it's still true. Emma stood and paced the room. Her mind raced, memories of every lesson, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt and fire. The moment she first saw the vault. The summit. The betrayal. Mars. Every step had led here. But this wasn't a job. It was a trade. She could have the power to shape the future, but only if she gave up the very thing that made her human, her childhood. Her friends. Her freedom to stumble and grow without the whole world watching. What would she become? A symbol? A servant? A system? She knew what Elon would say. The world needs guidance. You're the compass. But she also remembered her grandfather's words, once recorded in a letter she found in the vault's archives: never build a machine to replace the heart. Build one to protect it. The next morning, Emma stood before a packed hall at the UN, again. This time, it was a private session. No cameras. Just leaders from the WTC, military advisors, ethicists, and scientists. They all sat quietly as Emma walked to the podium. She didn't speak right away. She looked at each face. Some were old and gray. Some young and ambitious. Some skeptical. All were waiting for her to say yes. Then she did something none of them expected. She smiled. "Thank you," she began, "for believing in me. Truly. That belief has carried me through some of the hardest, scariest, and most inspiring moments of my life." She paused. "But I have to decline." A wave of whispers swept through the room. Emma raised her hand to quiet them. "I'm not rejecting the mission. I'm rejecting the model. The idea that leadership has to be a person with a title. A single voice at the top. That's the old way. I believe we can do better." She clicked a button and projected a map, nodes of bright light representing contributors to Polaris. Farmers. Coders. Children. Teachers. No hierarchy. Just shared purpose. I've spent the last few weeks building something new. A distributed intelligence council. Open seat applications. Global representation. Live transparency feeds. No single gatekeeper. Including me. She looked directly at the WTC chair. "I'm offering you a deal. You back this system. You implement it. You give everyone a voice. And I'll stay involved, as a founder. As a contributor. But not as a queen." The room was silent. Until one woman from Finland stood up and clapped. Then a man from Kenya. Then Japan. Brazil. France. Emma stepped away from the podium, her heart pounding. For a moment, she didn't know what they'd do. But then the WTC chair walked toward her and extended his hand. "You remind us," he said, "what leadership should look like." Emma took his hand. And just like that, the future began. Not ruled. Shared. The day after the United Nations vote, Emma walked through her old neighborhood for the first time in months. There were no reporters, no press vans, no security detail tailing her. She wore a plain hoodie, jeans, and her worn-out sneakers, a baseball cap tugged low over her brow. For the first time in a long time, she looked like what she actually was, a 7-year-old girl. But everything had changed. The vote to adopt the Distributed Intelligence Council, her system, had passed with overwhelming support. Not because it promised power, but because it promised trust. Emma's refusal to accept authority had done more to unite people than any speech, policy, or platform. She gave the world back to itself. And that had made her more powerful than any title ever could. Now she was back home, back on the same cracked sidewalk where she used to ride her scooter and draw chalk diagrams of planetary orbits. The sun was high, the air warm and fragrant with the scent of neighborhood barbecues. Kids were playing on front lawns. Dogs barked. Someone was blasting a Taylor Swift song through a cracked window. It felt real again. Emma stopped in front of an old metal fence where a tiny yellow flower had sprouted through a crack in the concrete. She crouched down and stared at it. It was just a flower, ordinary, defiant, alive. It hadn't asked for permission. It hadn't waited for better conditions. It had just grown, because it could. Her mom joined her on the sidewalk, holding a cup of iced tea in one hand and sunglasses in the other. "You okay?" Lisa asked. Emma nodded slowly. "Yeah. I think I am." They walked together to the park where it all began, where Emma had once tried to solve quantum encryption with sidewalk chalk. That same bench was still there. She sat on it again, now years older in her mind even if only months had passed in time. "You know," Lisa said as she sat beside her, "I remember the first time you told me you wanted to change the world. You were 5. You just watched that documentary about coral bleaching." Emma laughed. "I tried to invent a jellyfish drone to clean the reefs. You used a blender, 6 LEDs, and a pool noodle. And I short-circuited the fuse box," Emma added, grinning. Lisa smiled, but her eyes were glassy. "You've done it now, Emma. You really changed the world." Emma didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked around. At the kids running barefoot through the grass. At the man painting on an easel under the shade of a tree. At the woman pushing a stroller, singing softly to her baby. "I didn't change the world," Emma said finally. "I just helped it remember how to listen to itself." They sat quietly after that. Later, Emma went to her old school. It was lunchtime, and the cafeteria still smelled like grilled cheese and overcooked broccoli. Her old classmates screamed her name and ran up with a mix of awe and familiarity. "You went to space. Did you meet aliens? Can you hack Fortnite?" Emma laughed and answered their questions, but something more important happened. She rejoined them. They talked about dodgeball, science fair projects, and whether gummy bears were better than sour worms. And in that moment, Emma wasn't the girl who saved Mars or defied Elon Musk. She was just Emma. That night, she sat on the roof of her house with her telescope. The sky was crisp and cloudless. Polaris, the real star, gleamed above, a steady shimmer in a sea of black velvet. Her system was now live in over 100 countries. Thousands of contributors logged in daily, helping manage everything from traffic systems to pandemic responses to school lunch programs. The idea that intelligence should be distributed, guided by empathy and grounded in human voices, had caught fire. But here, under the stars, Emma thought of none of that. She just stared into the vastness. And smiled. Because in all her equations, models, and designs, she'd finally found the answer to the question she didn't know she was asking. What changes the world? It wasn't money. Or power. Or technology. It was a spark. A small moment. A child who dared to ask, what if? A mistake that became a lesson. A betrayal that revealed something deeper. A voice that refused to stay quiet, not because it wanted to be heard, but because it wanted to help. Emma remembered what she said at the summit. Connection is the key. Now she understood why. Because when people connect, really connect, they remember their shared purpose. They remember that the world isn't something to be owned or ruled. It's something to be tended, like a garden. Carefully. Together. And the greatest kind of intelligence isn't artificial. It's emotional. Empathetic. Human. Her mom came up the ladder behind her, carrying a blanket. "It's getting cold," Lisa said. She wrapped it around Emma's shoulders. Emma leaned into her. "Do you think I'll ever be normal again?" Lisa laughed softly. "You never were." Emma smiled. "Good." They sat there, girl and mother, under the wide-open sky. No speeches. No declarations. No equations. Just the quiet truth of everything they had learned. That sometimes, the biggest changes start with the smallest choices. And that one spark, passed from heart to heart, can light the way for the world. Forever. If you made it to the end of this story, thank you for taking the journey. Remember, you don't have to be a genius to change the world. You just have to care enough to try. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?